Over the last 5 years, LinkedIn outreach alone has generated me and my clients way over $5 million. But what's more valuable than that money is what I learned along the way. Because I know that if I lost it all, I'll be able to get back in there in no time just by using the LinkedIn outreach skills that I've built up. That's how powerful it is. So just for this masterclass, I've taken everything I've learned and formatted it into this one video so you can replicate my success, successfully do outreach on LinkedIn, and successfully scale your business. My name is Aman and I run a LinkedIn agency. I am fully absorbed into LinkedIn and I've worked on literally hundreds of accounts, helping them grow their profiles, create their content, but more importantly for this video, work on their DMs and their outreach so they can book in more qualified sales calls for their business. And throughout this whole process, I've learned that DM outreach is probably one of the most slept on tactics that I've seen across the whole industry. And it's hilarious because the amount of money that I've driven from it is absolutely ludicrous when you compare it to other channels that have a very high cost. When you compare it to outreach, it's just so cheap. The ROI is just so high that LinkedIn is probably the best place to be doing it, and it's where you should be paying attention right now. I've been able to book in calls with the biggest brands on the planet. We're talking Reddit, Liquid Death, Headspace, Calendly, PandaDoc, Yamaha, PostScript, Ironbrew, CXL, Deutsche Bank, Morgan Stanley. It's really amazing what you can do with the power of LinkedIn. In this video, you're going to learn the tactics that get the fastest results. It is incredibly lucrative to turn on LinkedIn outreach right away and start booking in qualified sales calls for your business. So first things first, I want to go over why LinkedIn is just such an effective platform for me and my business, and ultimately has allowed me to hit my revenue goals relatively easily compared to other channels. And for me, it's actually three main reasons that are all the reason why I choose to invest into LinkedIn and why I really suggest that you should take a serious consideration for this to be one of your main marketing channels. Now, the very first reason that you should consider is the low competition and low saturation. If you look at all the social channels out there, let's look at Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook. What you'll quickly realize is that channels go through some period of growth, some period of competition, saturation, and then there's an ultimate small death of the channel, and then it maybe comes back again afterwards. What I've discovered and what I believe is over the last 3-4 years, LinkedIn is still in its growth phase. We're nowhere near a level of saturation on LinkedIn that we would probably see on channels like Facebook, on Instagram, or on Twitter. And I see low competition in various forms. I see it in that I know my decision makers that I'm trying to outreach to only have a few competitors in their inbox, if not any, when I go deep enough. I can see it in the impressions that I get on my organic posts. I'm easily getting 1,000 to 5,000, sometimes 10,000 impressions on a post without even trying. And that same post on Twitter might only get a couple hundred impressions. That same post on Instagram might only get a couple hundred views. It's a completely different ballgame. And then when you consider the fact that I'm even having this conversation and trying to convince you that LinkedIn is the place to be is another indicator of how low the competition is, because ultimately this is the place where you want to be spending your energy and your effort in 2025. Aside from the low competition, there are so many other benefits to LinkedIn that you just have to be aware of. And the first one is access to decision makers. Every data platform, ZoomInfo, Apollo, like any data platform, ultimately is using Sales Navigator for their core of their data. And Sales Navigator is LinkedIn's internal database, which you can access for relatively cheap. I think it's like $99 a month. And on this database, you can effectively go in, click around and look at filters and literally find your ideal customer really, really easily. You can put a job filter for CEO in the US, and honestly, you can pull out a data list so quickly that's so targeted, it's actually insane. Now, with this data, you can literally send anyone a connection request. So really, you have incredibly easy access to qualified decision makers, which you can find on a Sales Navigator search in literally minutes. And then you can literally click in seconds and send them a connection request and then potentially send them a message. It's incredibly easy to get into the people that you care about and that are going to pay you money. And thirdly, LinkedIn is just so different because it's so personable. When you think about a channel like cold email, where you could spin up hundreds of inboxes, and that's what literally you need to do now to get results, and you can spam the whole TAM or spam your whole market and send them a lot of emails, and then you can probably hit them again in 3 months time and they won't even remember the first email they got from you, then you realize that that cold email channel is incredibly saturated, incredibly commoditized, and in some senses, something where you don't actually have a brand to destroy. But when you think about LinkedIn, on the other hand, you have infinite message history on the DMs. When you're outreaching to someone and you're speaking to someone, your name is appearing. And some people may be scared about that, but I think of it as an amazing thing, because finally we're getting away from that anonymity and we're getting into a very personable channel where if you are experienced, you're an expert, and you can showcase it through, let's say, LinkedIn content or through your job experience experiences, it's much easier for you to book in a meeting. So anyone with experience in some format does better on LinkedIn purely because they're able to leverage that experience and show it off to potential buyers of your services. And these things are just so important because, as I mentioned, cold email is just getting so much harder. You're competing with hundreds of people spamming the inboxes, and you have spam filters going like crazy, deliverability issues across the board in Microsoft domains and Google domains. You also have this other annoyance where you look at paid ads, and paid ads are generally quite expensive. But the highest ROI from any sort of marketing and sales strategy is almost always outreach, because outreach just requires your time. And if you're automating it, which is what we can do with HeyReach, then it doesn't actually require much time at all. And because typically paid ads are pushed into cold audiences, we can't always guarantee qualified leads, and we can't always guarantee the sales cycle will be short. Most often they're quite long because people need to build up trust with you. But remember, on LinkedIn, they can see your whole job experience, they can see your content, and therefore that trust building gap, that trust building time happens naturally, and therefore your sales cycle is just much faster on the platform. And finally, I know this video is about LinkedIn outreach, but LinkedIn is just so much more than that. Now, I'd feel bad not to give you the hacks and the tactics that actually really work well. So alongside outreach, you have to remember that LinkedIn is a content platform. You can create content on your profile, you can post it, and that content gets shown to your first degree connections and then your secondaries and so forth. But any content that you post is in a way nurturing your potential buyers so that when they come inbound to you, it's just a much easier sales conversation. So leveraging LinkedIn content on the platform is incredibly good use of your energy and your time. You can also leverage all the additional features on LinkedIn, which is the LinkedIn Live. So there's essentially a place to run a webinar on LinkedIn. You can also run ads on LinkedIn once you start having validation of your offer. There is a whole raft of ways to attack into your prospect to get them to trust you, like you know you, and then eventually buy from you. So the power of LinkedIn is incredible, and it just starts with outreach, and it goes on to so much more than that. So essentially what I found out after generating millions in revenue from LinkedIn is that it is just the place to be for hyper personalized targeted outreach. And when you think outside the box a little bit and you use tools like HeyReach to automate the messages you're sending to save you time, but also to add incredible levels of personalization to your messages, you realize you're able to book in a lot of meetings. And that's exactly what we did to scale our business. And I'm going to show you how to do that later on. Before I get into the technical stuff about how to set up the campaign, how to do outreach, how to build lead lists, we first need to be quite strategic about one important thing, and that is, what is your offer? Before you send a single message, you need to be able to create an irresistible offer. And this is because your LinkedIn outreach is only as strong as your offer. I've seen way too many accounts sending messages like, hey, great to connect, or hey, I saw you on LinkedIn, I saw across you on the feed. These are weak reasons to connect with someone. And the reason why they're weak and they're not a good offer is because they don't provide a clear value or a clear benefit to the person receiving the message. There are three things a great offer has. A great offer has a clear outcome. So if you were to buy the offer or buy into the offer, you would be very clear what you are getting from it. And typically the best outcomes you can sell on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn is a business platform and it's about growth, is you are selling some form of money. Now, what I mean by that is you are helping other businesses grow in some form, you're helping them save money, you're helping them make money, and the way they make money can take various forms. So it's very important that before you even go any step further, think about what you're selling. Remember, you're not selling a service or a deliverable. You're not selling Facebook ads management. You're selling, hey, here's how you make a higher ROAS with my ads. You're not selling, here's 1,000 words of content. You're selling, hey, you're going to get 1,000 new website traffic visitors to your blog. You're not selling, we run A/B tests. You're selling, we increase your conversion rate by 10%, which will increase your revenue per session by 20%, and therefore. That's what you're trying to do for their businesses. Now, after you have an outcome that's really, really clear, you then need to add on the credibility. And what I mean by this is anyone can promise anything in the market. We've all read $100 million leads by Hormozi. And as a result, people in the market came out and just made the most ludicrous offers that just weren't believable. So if you want to have an offer that has a good outcome, you need to make sure that it feels credible. And the way it feels credible is either by showing proof that you've done it before, i.e., hey, we did this for someone else and therefore we can get you this result. Or if you haven't got that proof, you need to add in a guarantee, or you need to add in some form of de-risking mechanism to make it easier for them to buy. And that kind of leads me on to point 3. Your offer needs to be easy to buy. And it can happen in the form of credibility, but can also happen in the form of your price point, in the form of your fee structure, in the form of anything. So for example, a lot of things I'm seeing in the market right now with cold email agencies is typically they say, hey, do you want to buy my retainer service? It costs 5K, 10K, 20K a month. The new offer that I'm seeing in the market is, hey, I will set up your cold email system for 4 or 5K, one-time fee, and then we will work on a performance basis for the rest of it. And that is a much easier decision to buy into because I own the system and therefore I don't feel like I'm going to pay you a monthly retainer and not get results. Now for my clients, to help them create winning offers that don't require them to change their whole business, we create something called a micro offer. And a micro offer is essentially a standalone service we provide that's really, really easy to buy. So a micro offer in theory is affordable, it gets a clear result, it's very fast to fulfill, and it's one time. So for example, a micro offer could be, hey, if you're, let's say, an e-com agency or an ads agency or a paid ads agency, we will repurpose your existing assets into 15 winning Black Friday, Cyber Monday ad creatives in under 7 days for $1,500. Or we will deploy a new landing page that converts at a 10% higher conversion rate, guaranteed, for $2,000. Or we will design your demand generation strategy in a single 2.5-hour session for $499. All these three things are really easy to buy micro offers because they're both one-time, affordable, fast to fulfill, and they give a tangible result. So remember that you don't need to change your whole business to create your offer. You can create a new offer, which I again call the micro offer, which is something you can lead with to get the sale, and then you can upsell them in the back end to the bigger offer or the main retainer service or whatever you're selling in the back end. You might be wondering, what's the right micro offer for my market? What's the right thing I should do? How do I know if it's working? And it's really simple. One is you have to have obviously an intuitive feel, and then you can go ask your existing customers or your warm audience which one they would buy from. But if you want to test this at scale, you simply create multiple campaigns on HeyReach, or you create a single campaign with different message variations, and you can literally A, B, C, D, whatever, test through all your different offers and have that run as a campaign out to the market. And then you can literally measure, hey, micro offer B and micro offer D got the highest results and the higher response rates and the highest closed clients, which then upsold into retainer services. So that's the way you would go about it. So now that's all out the way, let's jump in the technical stuff so I can show you step by step how you can do this for yourself and for your business, so you can book in sales calls, make money, sign clients, all the good stuff. So starting with the foundation of any good outreach campaign is almost always the lead list. And I really want to spend some time here and focus here for you, because getting the lead list right will literally make your business so much easier to run, because a good lead will result in a good customer, which will result in a good client, which will have a high LTV. If you choose the wrong lead, everything down funnel will break, but you'll only be able to see it after 3 months or 6 months of working with this person and doing outreach and so forth. So making a wrong decision here will have big ramifications for your business in the future. A lot of times people struggle with two things with lead lists. One, they say to me, hey, Aman, everyone is my customer. And the issue with this very quickly is that means, one, you don't really understand the pain points of specific industries because they have different pain points. You don't understand the language that specific industries use because they use different language. And you don't truly understand why that person should buy from you. Now, I get it. A lot of people can be customers for your business, but they all have slightly different reasons for buying and slightly different words that they would resonate with. So the very first mistake is assuming that everyone is a customer when it's not true. And the second reason, and to make this really clear for you, is a customer or a potential customer can have a very clear pain point which you can solve, and that's fine. And if you did outreach to them, you could probably sign them as a client. But here's a question I want you to think about. Is that person with that really severe pain point going to be a good customer for you? Are they going to have a high LTV, which is a high lifetime value? Are they going to treat you well? Are they going to be a good service client for you? And are they going to help give you more referrals? And it's almost like we make the mistake at the beginning of the journey. Will these guys have a high response rate? Will these guys sign with me quickly? But we don't actually care about that much. You're going to make clients, you're going to make money, you're going to sign deals. I don't doubt that for a second if you do everything right. What I doubt is this person, when you eventually sign them, going to pay you a lot of money to make it all worth your time? So the biggest mistake I'm seeing is not really thinking about these two things, and I'm going to help you think about them right now. So overall, you need to be building good, targeted, and niche lead lists, because you want anyone you're outreaching to. If you look at any name on that list, you should be thinking, hey, I would love to sign that person as a client. That actually makes a really good client for me. That pays me a lot of money. that respects me, and that is worth my energy and my time. Because if you don't do that, you will send leads and connection requests to leads which have a very low acceptance rate and therefore don't reply to you, therefore don't book in meetings with you, therefore use up your weekly connection limit or quota on LinkedIn. You will also get leads that unfortunately are really bad for your business because they will churn very quickly, they will have a low LTV, and you might be getting this because you're using an outreach tool for some reason that's giving you access to data that's outdated. This is a huge mistake. Sometimes the biggest mistakes are with the source of data we're using. If you're going to an outreach tool which provides you data, you probably should be very skeptical, in my opinion, because the freshest data is from LinkedIn Sales Navigator. That is the best place to get data right now. So be very careful about what data you're using, how you're enriching it, and so forth, because we want only qualified prospects in our lead lists. So what you need to do is you need to go into LinkedIn Sales Navigator and you need to start creating your lead lists. Now, let me give you a bit of a context on how Sales Navigator works. Sales Navigator has two main tabs that you care about. The first one is called Accounts, and the Accounts tab, and when you search in the Accounts filter, will help you find qualified businesses for your offer. So for example, say you only sell into SEO agencies, or you only sell into SaaS companies, or you only sell into dental practices. This is the place where you find that type of company. Once you have that type of company, you can save them to something called an account list. And on that list, you can then go to the lead search and you can look for all the people that work at that account list. So for example, I create a test one over here. These are all the people that work at the company Outfund. And this is how you find qualified people at qualified companies. You'll only need to use the account tab if you're looking for a specific type of company and you're looking for job titles at that company. If for whatever reason you're only looking for a certain type of person, so you're only looking for founders, you're only looking for directors of marketing, then it doesn't matter to do an account list. But for most people here, they will need to create an account list first, and then they will need to create a lead list. You're going to jump over to accounts and you're going to look around at these filters. There's lots of filters here. I personally don't like using annual revenue because I feel like it's not measured correctly. It's very hard to know what a private company's revenue is. Instead, I love to use the headcount as like a proxy or a function of the amount of revenue or the size. Now, in private equity, they would assume that one employee bought around 100K in revenue. A 10 employee company is probably doing around 1 million, maybe 2 million sort of thing. And you can begin to work it out that way. But let's say you can look for a company headcount. You can look for company headcount growth if you're looking for a company that's actively hiring and actively growing their company. Just bear in mind that if you're applying a percentage to a very small number, you're obviously not going to get very good results. Headquarter location can sometimes be interesting. I personally prefer to use the person location, not the company location, because I know, for example, some big companies are based out in Asia, but the director of marketing may work in the US, and I know that therefore there's good budget there and they can pay for stuff. But it just depends. You can also do the US here. Industry is a really interesting one. There are industries here and you can't actually see all of them. The thing about LinkedIn is when a company is created on LinkedIn, like you create the company page, the person who creates the company page defines the industry you're part of. And as a result, that industry might never change. Like that LinkedIn company page just never gets adapted. But in reality, that business has changed ever so slightly, or it was a function of what that person believed the industry to be. So for example, there's no SaaS industry on LinkedIn, but there is a software development industry. And if we look at software development, what we're going to see is we're going to see SaaS companies like Amazon and Microsoft. But if I look at a small headcount, we're probably going to see a bunch of software development houses. So these guys build software. You might notice that an industry is not a very clear-cut definition of who you're trying to go after. And the reason why that is because people define themselves in various ways. And this can sometimes make building a lead list a little bit tricky. So if you are using industries, you probably want to use it with keywords too. For example, if we're looking for software companies and you look at the software development industry, we might want to say the word platform with some speech marks, which means look for the exact, the exact presence of the word platform, either in the company name or in the about section. And therefore we can really get a narrower list. So be careful. You might need to use the industries and the search filters. I personally don't use number of followers. I don't find it that useful. Sometimes I use department headcount growth. If, for example, I'm looking at a really big company, let's say it's 500,000 people, and I'm trying to work out if their marketing team exists. Like some businesses are, very sales led. I want a minimum of 5 people at this marketing company. So 343 went to 322. So interestingly, that means there's companies here that have less than 5 people in their marketing team. So you can do it this way. We can look at who those people are. So this is an interesting way to identify businesses more marketing led or more sales led. We can look at department headcount growth. Again, I don't typically use this one because a department can be relatively small. It can be 5, 10, 20, 30 people. And so 10% increase is 2 people. It's not a huge number, but the increase in percentage is, so it can sway the stats a bit. You can use Fortune, which is looking for the biggest companies. I don't use it. Technologies used is interesting. I will typically only use this if I'm going after e-com or I'm going after people running ads. So I'll say like LinkedIn ads. I can see all the companies using LinkedIn ads, which obviously is most big companies. Or I can look at, let's say, are they using Shopify, which I doubt will be true in this scenario, which makes sense where there's not many people using it. And so you can use these technologies to filter out and through who you're looking for. So for example, if you want retail, one of the e-com brands, one of the easy things you can do is just write retail industry Shopify filter, and you probably get some people coming in with the headcount. These are probably e-com brands. You got to do some research into it. The next thing you can do is look at spotlights. So some people are actively trying to sell into people hiring on LinkedIn. So this is a really good way to look for people that are hiring. So this indicates growth, this indicates budget. You can look if they've had a senior leadership change or they had a funding event. This again usually means opening up for budgets. And you can look at if they're a first reconnection to you. Again, I don't use this one much. So what I typically do is I will go through all these filters and I will create a filter list that looks relevant for the type of company I'm going after. And if you're struggling with finding the industry, you can always go to ChatGPT. So I'm, for example, can say I'm selling into sign makers. What is the closest industry on LinkedIn Sales Navigator? And then it will give you some results, given that it understands who LinkedIn Sales Navigator industries are, which is a bit annoying, and it'll tell you what's going on. So let's watch it go. And so we see we have printing, occasionally graphic design, or marketing and advertising, but printing is the most common. So we can go back to here and back to Sales Navigator and write printing. And then we get a bunch of companies over here that look in the right way. And I've still got the platform there, but we can remove that as well. Now, what you can also do is you can be like, hey, this is not getting me a great list. And you can go back to ChatGPT and say, hey, I used the printing services industry, but it didn't get perfect companies. Can you give me a Boolean search that would make the output very qualified? So I've asked ChatGPT to make a Boolean search, which it has, and it looks a bit like this. I'm just going to copy it over, go into Sales Navigator, put it in the keywords, and hit enter. And we went from 240,000 companies to 2,500, and they all look pretty specifically about sign solutions, which is really amazing. And it was really easy for me to do that. Now, my next step, once I have this list of companies, is I need to save it to a list such that I can find the people that work at those companies. So let's say I want to sell to the CEOs of signage companies. The next step I got to do is I got to click select all and save to list. And I got to create a new list. Let's call it signage companies. Save it. And then I got to go through and click through every single one. And it's a little bit painful. I get it. This is unfortunately what LinkedIn makes you do, but you only need to do this if you're looking for a certain type of company. What you can then go is go to the leads tab, click on lead filters, and you can click on account lists over here, and you can search for the one you made. So let's say signage companies, and now we see all the people that work at these signage companies, which is amazing. The next thing we got to do is identify the qualified people that work at those companies. There are 3 ways to look for people on LinkedIn Sales Navigator. You can look at the function they work in, their job title, or their seniority level. So function is like, marketing, sales, business development, media, whatever it is. The job title is obviously their job title, and the seniority level is if they're a VP, are they a CEO, are they a senior, are they an advisor? Naturally, choosing the job title is the most specific and narrow way to get to your ICP. And in most people, I recommend say the job title and choose the job title that you want to go after. So for example, we're going to go after CEOs, we're going to go after co-founders, we might go after owner. And now we have 393 people, for example, that work at these companies. What we can then do is apply more filters on top. For example, maybe we want to know how long they've been working at the company. Maybe we want to know how they've been working in the current position. Or we want to know that, hey, are they definitely based in the US? And we can just put North America here. I don't like to use the industry personal filter. And the reason why is when, again, you create your LinkedIn account, it asks you, what's your industry? What's your personal industry? So you might have created it when you were an intern or when you were just starting in your career journey. And naturally, people change industry. So if I look at this industry and I put, let's say out of 281 people, only 125 said they were in printing. But if we look at that, only not everyone said printing. So we would actually lose out on a lot of leads, over half, if we use the industry on the personal level and not on the company level. So be very careful about that. Again, you can choose their first name, last name if you're interested in doing that. You can look at people that went to previous schools as you, their years of experience, and so forth. The one thing I really like to do here about all these buyer, I don't really use buyer intent. Sometimes I use best passed in if I'm looking in for referrals. So I can say, hey, are you a connection of someone I know? Or are you a first degree connection or a second degree connection? But the one I really like to use is post on LinkedIn. The reason why I love to use post on LinkedIn is because there's no other proxy for activity on LinkedIn in Sales Navigator. Now, what I mean by this is out of 281 people, how many of these people do you believe log into LinkedIn every single day? And I imagine it's very small because people use LinkedIn for a multitude of reasons. They use it to find jobs, get clients, get sales, do marketing, but not everyone uses LinkedIn. And there's no way for me to go, hey, have you used LinkedIn in the last 30 days? There is no way for me to do that. The only way I can do that on LinkedIn Sales Navigator is say, hey, have you posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days? Because if you've posted, that means you're definitely using the platform. So my best proxy for activity here is posted on LinkedIn. I get that it's not perfect, but by using this filter, you will probably increase your acceptance rates. I say probably, you will increase your acceptance rates by 2 to 4x, because you're now sending connection requests to people that actually use the platform and actually will see it. And I've tested this so many times. It's the very first thing I tell my clients to do. Make sure you use this filter. Otherwise, you're going to have a very low acceptance rate for ultimately no reason. So make sure you use this filter. Now, as a result, you're going to have this awesome list. Let's say it's this list. It can be any list. And at the top of your LinkedIn, you have your URL. And this URL basically captures this whole list. And you can now take this URL and just put it into HeyReach and start sending out connection requests. A lot of other tools don't allow you to do this. And I find that they make you then buy a scraping tool to scrape through the leads to get the accounts or the leads such so you can, put it into your cold email tool, put it into your outreach tool. You don't need to do that in this scenario, which is much, much better. So what you're going to want to do is go over to HeyReach, and I'm going to assume that you've connected up your account. And if you haven't, all you want to do is go to LinkedIn accounts and click connect account, put your email, your password in, and literally click account, and it's done. It's very, very quick and easy. We already have some accounts in this profile right now, so I can show you what we do. You click over to leads, you click add leads, and you'll notice there are so many different ways to get leads inside HeyReach. There is the LinkedIn search bar, the sales navigator leads, which I just showed you, recruiter, event, post reactors, a CSV import, the search bar of the company, sales navigator accounts. There are so many ways to do it. So the way we're going to do it right now is using the sales navigator leads, because that's how we just got our lead list. We're going to click continue. We're going to enter a list name. Let's just call it test one. Select our senders. This is the account that you just connected up, and you can just paste in the sales navigator URL. So we can go back here, copy paste the URL, and paste it into the search URL. And all you got to do then is click start importing. And it's so easy, because now what HeyReach does is, if you were using an account that was a saved search account list, it will go in and just scrape it from your LinkedIn account. And if you're not, it will just do a normal lead search, and it's super easy to do. And so there you go. HeyReach has scraped that whole list and pushed it into a single lead list, which we can now use to go send outreach messages to. We can do something pretty cool here is we can actually edit this lead list inside HeyReach, which not many tools let you do. So you can scroll to the right-hand side and say, I think, hey, this guy's he's not qualified for whatever reason. I can just remove him from this lead list. It'll take me a couple seconds to remove all the unqualified people. And I have a full list of people that I can go after and send connection requests to. So once you've built your lead list up, you've imported it into HeyReach, the next step is to begin to craft that perfect outreach message. And I'm going to tell you a really quick and important fact. One, you're probably not going to get it perfect at the start. It's probably going to be wrong, and that's okay. All we need to do is get the reps moving. And two, the perfect outreach message, when you do find it, and you will realize this, it doesn't talk about you, or it doesn't talk about yourself. It mainly speaks about the benefits and the values it can give to the person receiving it. And that's really, really important, because the message that you're sending shouldn't be some generic, hey, nice to connect. I mean, that's so inauthentic. That's so rubbish. It's got to offer some value, and it's got to aim to get a response, not a booked meeting. We're not aiming for booked meetings in our first message. We're aiming for booked meetings in message number 5, 6, 7. It will take time to get there, because we're naturally having a conversation and a back and forth with people that will over time develop into the sales call. And that's why the best messages don't even feel like cold DM outreach. They almost feel conversational. They break the pattern, and I'm going to show you exactly how to do that right now. So here's my simple framework for crafting amazing outreach messages that work very, very well. And basically it follows the format observation and then question. So when we're trying to outreach to someone, we need to show that we're being relevant to them. We understand that their business. And the best way I do this is by making an observational statement. So for example, we might say, hey, just checked out your website, or saw you liked my post, or saw you commented on my post, or I saw you viewed my profile, or awesome ads, love the one with the green frog in the background. Whatever it is, it's got to be an observation that shows that there's a real reason why you are reaching out to this person, or that there is an element of, hey, I've done some work for this message, so that it doesn't look like AI, it doesn't look like automation, because those are the sort of things that don't get you responses. We almost need to be anti-automation, anti-AI in the style of writing we're using in order to get the response. And that's really, really important. Now, after you have your observation, you're going to do two things. You're either going to make a direct offer, and you're going to say what you do, and then you're going to have a low, soft call to action, or you're just going to ask a question. And I'm going to walk you through both paths. So path one, which is the direct path, you can basically say, hey, I saw your website, looked really cool, the headline was awesome. We help people run ads for a lower cost than they're currently doing. Do you want to learn more? And that's a very direct way of making a statement, making a question, and trying to get a meeting booked. And that can work if your micro offer, or if your offer, or whatever your value statement is that you're giving away or you're selling, is really strong and really desirable in the market. So I have a client that helps people save money on their insurance bills, and he's like, I will save you 30 to 50% guaranteed. In that scenario, I'm like, dude, go with the direct offer because it's such a strong offer. We don't need to beat the bush here. But if your offer isn't as strong, and that's completely okay, you may need to have an indirect conversation. So you may be like, hey, an awesome website, great headline, curious, how are your ads going? And I'm just trying to start a conversation and probe for a pain point because the offer that I'm giving isn't enough to suck them in. I need to get some pain there first before they want to book in the call with me. So there are ultimately two ways, the direct route and the indirect route. And the function of which one you go down is because if your offer is really strong, you go for the direct route. And if your offer is not so strong or it requires some qualification, you go for the indirect route and you want to have a conversation before you book in the call. Now, examples of soft call to actions that you can make in the direct route would be like, want to learn more? Can I send you a video about this? I've just recorded a 5-minute loom. Want to see it? What do you think? These questions are giving the decision making back to the prospect. You're not assuming they want it. They need to opt in and ask for, hey, I want to learn more about what you're selling me. And to make this even more powerful, what you can do with HeyReach is you can use AI, which is inbuilt into HeyReach, to send a personalized message at the start of your connection request. Let me show you what that looks like. If you go into the create campaign, and I'll show you how to do this a bit later on, but if you go into the sequence and you say send a connection request, you can toggle this button that says Chat GPT personalized AI message. And if you toggle it, it essentially will create a personalized message for every single LinkedIn lead in your lead list. Now, I don't always recommend to do this. And the reason why is when you send a blank connection request on LinkedIn through HeyReach or through any tool, the general point is that you get a higher acceptance rate with a blank request than with a request with text. I think the number that HeyReach has shown is a 27% acceptance rate on a blank versus 22% with text. Let's say we want to do text for whatever reason. Simply select a tone, let's call it genuine. The message goal is to make them feel like we understand their business. I don't want to use emojis, and we can click generate a message preview. And literally we have, hi Devin, I see the impact you made in helping startups and side hustles succeed. At HeyReach, we understand the importance of putting intellectual property. Let's chat about how we can support your business goals. It's not an amazing message, but it's really cool because it's generated a response very quickly. We can say to book in a meeting. We can generate another message preview. Hey Sophia, I'm Martin. I'm a UX designer. Your impressive journey resonates with me. I'd love to book in a meeting. So these are quite direct messages. Again, I don't personally recommend doing it all the time, but it can work in some specific scenarios. Now, if you're wondering what type of scripts to use and how to say in your messages, the next part of the video is for you. I'm going to walk you through some example scripts that we can use to help book in more meetings. And let's get right into it right now. So firstly, before I walk into the scripts, you can also go into HeyReach and click on resources and outbound outliers, and you can see other people's scripts that they're using to get results. So you can literally, this is always going to be updated. You can go through and just see all the tactics that they're using on the HeyReach platform. And it's going to be really useful for you if you want to have more ideas beyond this video. But right now, let's get into it. So let's say, for example, we're selling PPC services. So we're selling pay-per-click services. We could say something along the lines of, hey, notice you weren't appearing on Google. Have you ever thought about running ads? And that's a really easy way to say if you notice something, this is an observation, and then you ask a question. Have you ever thought about running ads there? Look how colloquial, how conversational the tone is. You can even soften it more by going, or not, haha. And by doing this, we really remove the salesiness of the message. We can even use a similar idea if they were reacting to posts. So let's say we were reacting to posts or they were engaging with posts. We can go, hey, noticed you on a post about social selling. Have you ever thought about running a video campaign? The other way that you can do this is you can use a case study to help you book in a meeting. So let's say this is a case study one. Do a case study, and we can then go instead, hey, we helped a car dealer, and you can say the brand name, get 50% more inquiries with a SEO strategy. So this is with like a mechanism. So you can change this whatever you want it to be. It's going to be with a sales strategy, with an SEO strategy, with AI lead handling, whatever you want to call it. Want to see the full flow, can ping across a video. Let me know. So again, this one is a bit of an observation because we're observing ourselves and then we're asking a question. So it always comes back down to observation and a question. Why is this relevant? What is interesting about this message? Here's my question to go out after for you. And what you do is when you have this idea or this message, you just copy and paste it from a Google Doc or wherever you've written it. You go into HeyReach and then you create a campaign that basically starts with add action, if connection. So if they're not connected, we're going to send them a connection request. I typically like to go blank because it has a higher acceptance rate. Then after they've accepted, I'll wait a day. You can change this to 2 days, 3 days, etc. And click add action, send message, and then you can write a message in there. And you can add even at a first line or a first name personalization over here. we copy it into the fallback message, and we click save. And that's literally it. It's as easy as that to start up your outreach and your outreach flows. Once you have your lead list, which we just created, it's just a factor of creating this little flow chart inside HeyReach and then clicking continue and starting off that sales outreach. So to take this even further, I'm going to screen share and show you some more ways we can implement new scripts into our business so that we can book in more meetings. I've got quite a few different types of scripts here, and they're all around different ideas that we can use in order to book more meetings for our business. So the very first method that I want to show you, and it works really well, is the lead magnet method. So if you don't know what a lead magnet is already, it's essentially a really valuable resource that solves a pain point. And what happens is when you give that resource to someone and they consume it, they effectively become a lead. Now, typically lead magnets are gated, i.e. you have to access them, you have to give them your email, but we're going to use a lead magnet in a value-based selling way. What we're going to do is we're going to give a lead magnet to someone proactively in the DMs without them having to ask for it. Now, a lead magnet is a really valuable resource that solves a pain point. So if, for example, if you are selling into other businesses and you help them set up and generate more leads through cold email, the pain that you might be solving is setting up cold email inboxes and domains is very time consuming. And the lead magnet that you can give, the valuable resource, is a video on how to set up cold emails and inboxes and or domains in under 5 minutes. Now, typically what happens when you give away a lead magnet is you ask the user to opt in for it, i.e. you go, hey, here's this thing. Do you want it? Comment below or give me your email address. In this model of outreach, we're actually just going to give the resource to the person by asking them, hey, do you want it? Now, what this does, it helps us get a very high positive reply rate because who doesn't want a free resource? Two, what it does is it helps us qualify the people responding because if they're responding, they therefore have that pain. So the message that you can use, and I've written this before and I've done this many times, is hi name, spoken to a few other job titles, and I noticed pain. So I created a lead magnet that gets outcome. Want it? Question mark. So what's happening here? In the first line, we're effectively making an observation. I spoke to a few other job titles. So people like you, the person I'm reaching out to, and I noticed pain. I noticed that you're struggling with cold emails. This shows an observation. It shows that this is about to become a very relevant message. And I say, so I created a lead magnet that gets you outcome. Now remember, it's really important that we talk about the outcome because people buy outcomes, not services. And then we have a permission-based response. We say, want it? Question mark. I'm a big proponent and a big fan of always asking people if they want a resource or if they want to book in a meeting. I want to give control back to the prospects they don't feel they're being sold to. This is why I'm really against when people send calendar links uninvited because they haven't asked for it. That's not the requirement right now. Now, if, for example, you don't get a response, I would use this as message 2. I say, let me know name. I even say LMK. I don't write let me know. Similarly, used it and got outcome. So that second line is a bit like a micro case study. It's a singular point to say, hey, this actually works. Maybe you should use it in your business. And that's how I would do the lead magnet script. Now, in case you don't have a lead magnet, here's another idea you can do. Instead of going for a lead magnet, you go for an event. So what is you just suggest you run an event for a specific ICP and you identify and you invite people to attend. I personally used this campaign and I ran an event with a bunch of other heads of growths in Sydney and I got about 10 people to attend and it was awesome. The script I use and the script I recommend you use is again designed to be permission based and it is designed to show an observation. So it goes, hey name, I'm running a dinner for job titles in location. So I'm running a dinner for heads of growth in London. Bunch of really cool people are attending. Want to join? Question mark. It's very direct. You don't need to sell it too much because who doesn't want to go to a dinner with lots of other people as the same job title as you? It's great for your own networking, but obviously I want to be in a room with a bunch of potential buyers. I also say bunch of really cool people attending, and I say it in a conversational tone because I don't want it to come across as salesy. You can make these words more formal, but I purposely choose not to break the pattern. And then finally, permission-based reply, want to join. Do you want to join? Yes or no? If you don't, that's completely okay. We know DM outreach is almost a volume game. We are going for the market and we're trying to identify who's relevant for this offer. This is an awesome message and it works really well. Message 2, well, got 3 out of 10 seats left if you're interested. And I'm just creating a bit of scarcity and urgency. I'm not being too aggressive with it because this is not direct response copywriting. This is not me trying to sell on a landing page. I literally just want this person to come and attend my event. So it's me very, very subtle, very, very relaxed. This is a great way that you can run an event. You don't even have to pay for everyone's dinners. If they're all coming, they can all pay for themselves. Anyone can run a G, even you, or if you just, want to meet other people, that are similar to you, just run this message and I guarantee you'll fill up a dinner table pretty quickly. The third idea I recommend you use is the profile viewer idea. What's the idea here and why is it working? Profile viewers are high intent. So LinkedIn lets you see who's viewed your profile. And this is a screenshot where you can see Prashant viewed this profile and we can see the number of profile viewers. Now this is available on your LinkedIn profile, which you can always look at. Now the easiest way that you can use this data is just to go in there and click message on one of the leads every day in the morning to get to a new lead and get to a new message. It's really simple. All you got to say is message, hey, saw you checked out my profile. How's thing going? And thing can be whatever you're trying to sell and whatever thing is blocking them from getting their result. So for example, say you are a conversion rate optimization agency. You can say, how's your conversion rate going? How's your ads going? How's your e-com brand going? It's really generic because we don't really know what's going on. We know that they have some intent to buy or to understand what we are doing, but they haven't really reached out to us yet. So we want to reach out to them and let them take a little bit of control of the direction of the conversation because we want to elicit a response from them. This is a message I would use. I wouldn't actually follow up over a profile view message because they chose not to reach out anyway. So I'm already doing quite a lot by messaging them in the first place. At this point, I'm just going to let them respond when they're ready. Now, I've shown you how to do lead magnets, events, and profile viewing, but sometimes if you're scaling your business, you might want to think about hiring. Now, I have an amazing script for hiring that works really, really well. So the idea here is if you want to hire a new employee, the easiest way to find a qualified candidate is to actually outreach directly. For example, if you're looking for account managers, just scrape a list of existing account managers, then send them a message. It's very, very simple. And the message you can use here is, hey name, are you open to a new account manager role? We're looking to make a new hire and I thought you might be a good fit. Let me know if interested. Again, if you might notice, all my scripts follow the exact same framework. It's always observation and it's always question. So are you open to a new account manager role? So I'm going to account manager saying, do you want a new role? We're looking to make a new hire. I thought you might be a good fit. Let me know if interested. This generally gets a very high response rate, a very high acceptance rate, because you're effectively offering someone a job. So it's not a big surprise that we're going to get a lot of people responding. So whenever you're hiring, you can run your job ads, but also run an outreach campaign because you can get these people into your funnel and get them booking in calls with you to be qualified for a job. Now, going back to outreach and client acquisition, if for whatever reason you're in an area, this is a great script to use to set up meetings very quickly. So let's say you're traveling to a new area. Maybe you're going to New York for the weekend. Maybe you're going and flying out to somewhere in Europe. All you got to do is set up a LinkedIn sales list of people that look really interesting to you, that live in that area. And you send them a message. And you say, hey name, I'll be in the location on this date and I'm meeting other job titles. Open for a coffee. I run a company and we do some stuff. This isn't a sales pitch. I just want to meet. Let me know. Again, observation, or this one says, this is a statement. I'm in a location. I'm meeting other people like you. Do you want to have a coffee? I run a company. We do a thing. We help people grow. And then you have to, because you've told them what you do, it's going to come across as a little bit salesy. So we reduce the sales pressure by literally saying, this isn't a sales pitch. I just want to meet. Let me know. That generally typically gets a good response rate. And you can add it on. If you want to reply backwards after it with a message too, you just say, got a slot on date if that works. And we're just trying to really push for it at the end. I like to do message 2 in this case is because you're actually genuinely in a location for a short amount of time. You do want to fill your calendar up typically. And so you do want to be a bit more urgent with this, or have a high bit more agency or urgency with this message. And then finally, my last technique, which works really, really well, and you don't have to leave your home for this one, I promise, it's the LinkedIn Live technique. So if you go on LinkedIn, there are a bunch of LinkedIn Lives that are happening. So this is an example screenshot of a email versus LinkedIn outreach best practices webinar. And if you look at that and you attend that event, you click attending, you will be able to see the full participant list of that event on LinkedIn. And if you go to that URL and you copy and paste that URL, you can head over to HeyReach, click LinkedIn event attendees, and you can extract all the people who are attending a LinkedIn event into HeyReach and reach out to all of them. And it's even compatible with free LinkedIn accounts. So it looks like this. You have the LinkedIn event and we can get every person on it. All we got to do is click continue, give it a list name, and we just got to paste the event attendees URL into the search query. Now, when you do that, quite simply, you'll be able to fill out all the attendees and HeyReach will automatically scrape it for you. Now, when you scraped it, all you got to do is send them a really simple message. So the message I would send is, hey, first name, I saw you registered for the event name, event with host. And so I actively say that because it's not the event that I'm running. So I don't want to act like I ran that event. I'm going to be very transparent about that. I had a discussion with one of the ICP that attended it, and I'm curious to hear your approach. And then you ask the question. Super, super simple. So once you've got some decent outreach messages schemed up, you're going to want to start sending them. But before you do, we need to keep some things in mind. Now, the very first thing to consider is the amount of volume you can send on LinkedIn. So currently and today, there is a limit on the number of connection requests you can send on LinkedIn. And that is approximately 100 to 200 connection requests per week from a single account. Now, where you lie on that 100 to 200 is a function of the warmth of your account. There's no direct number to look at on LinkedIn, nor is there a way to really measure it without you actually doing it. But typically, if you have a new account that hasn't posted much content, that doesn't have much of a connection base, you could expect that you're going to be around the 100 connection request limit per week. Now, on the other hand, if you're a very active account and you're posting content frequently, you're engaging in the DMs, you get a lot of connection requests accepted, you can expect to be on the 200 connection requests per week limit. So on a daily limit, that 100 to 200 becomes around 20 to 40 per day on LinkedIn. Now, when you hit that connection limit, all that happens is that LinkedIn tells you, hey, you've hit your weekly connection limit. And it's a really simple message. You don't get in trouble for it. There's no issue whatsoever. But when you get to that number, you will be told by LinkedIn, hey, you can't send any more connection requests. Now, unless you are manually counting how many connection requests you sent, you wouldn't have a way to know exactly how many connections that was. But I'll tell you in a minute how you can actually work that number out. Now, although 100 to 200 connection requests per week feels like a small number, when you compare it to the volume you could get in cold email, where there are people sending thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousand emails every single month, there is a slight difference with LinkedIn and why we need to be at a smaller volume. So firstly, LinkedIn is a people-to-people platform. It's somewhere where everyone knows everyone, where on cold email, you can basically be anonymized by the fact you're using this inbox and this domain you span up. And as a result, your outreach on LinkedIn is generally a lot more effective because people know who it's coming from. And that's a huge differentiator right now. Being able to create content on a profile and send DMs on top of that with the same profile increases trust massively and also increases your response rates. Now, even though 100 to 200 is not a huge number, manually sending out 100 to 200 connection requests per week, i.e. 20 to 40 a day, is a bit of a task. You would have to log in, open the profile link, click on it, make sure it's qualified, click the little three icons and send the connection request. And that's actually quite a consuming process. See, if you don't use your maximum weekly quota, unfortunately, you don't get anything added back. You just go and reset back to your number the next week. And sending manual requests could literally take you half an hour to an hour per day of wasted time of you using your brain to do something that really shouldn't be a manual task. And this is why we have LinkedIn automation. We have LinkedIn automation because doing everything manually on LinkedIn is incredibly time consuming, and we need a better and faster way to max out our limits safely and securely. Now, the issue is most automations really don't do well at this. The reason why is that they don't give you control of all the settings to keep your account safe and secure, and they do some things that risk your account getting banned. So firstly, most automation softwares don't allow you to even scale outreach correctly because they don't allow you to control the number of connection requests you're sending per day. And even if they did, they don't allow you to control the micro messages, how many messages you send per day, how many profiles you do per day, how many comments you do per day. All these little things can make a big impact on your outreach and how it performs. And if that wasn't all, most outreach does a really bad job of getting you flagged by LinkedIn. Now, the way it works is an automation software typically logs into your account as if it was you on a private computer somewhere. Now, when it does that, it goes through a VPN or a proxy in order to mask its location to where you currently are. And HeyReach does this really well. HeyReach gives you a proxy, it gives you a location, it sticks to the main ones, so that you're not jumping around the world. But other tools, which are sometimes cheaper, are notorious for you getting banned. And the reason why is that they keep jumping your location around via proxies and cheap VPNs. And as a result, it looks like to LinkedIn that you're logging in multiple locations. And it can cause the automation software to force you to log out because it doesn't like that you're in multiple locations. So this is a really big red flag I want you to be aware of. And typically I see it with the cheaper outreach tools, and that's because they're not paying for the proxies or the VPNs, which is making it cheaper for you. And here's the bigger risk. If, for whatever reason, your account is flagged by LinkedIn, you risk it getting banned. That's really dangerous because That's a lot of your network and a lot of your hard work built in building brand and getting into certain places and in certain networks. So as a result, you really don't want to risk anything that might get your account banned, and you want to use softwares that are verified, that are secure, that are safe, and have that security in mind from day one. Now, to automate outreach, I use HeyReach, and the reason why I use it is because it gets three things really right about automation when it comes to LinkedIn. The first thing it does is it follows the LinkedIn connection limit. So it's between 100 to 200. And when you hit that limit, HeyReach recognizes and stops your account from sending more connection requests. Now, LinkedIn resets that counter at Monday at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So whenever it hits Monday at 2 p.m. in Pacific time, we stop, it resets, and all our limits are reset up on HeyReach. Now, there's no way for you to change that hard limit on HeyReach. It's almost like it's got a stop clock counter on your car. You can't go past that speed limit, otherwise the police are going to come and pull you over. The second thing that HeyReach does really well is it adheres to the daily limit. Now, I didn't mention this previously, but every day you can do 200 actions on LinkedIn. Now, these 200 actions can be such things as profile viewing and messaging and so forth, but this 200 limit is adhered to by HeyReach, and you can adjust the numbers of each micro activity you're doing. Now, what's really cool is I'll show you how you can adjust those numbers to be in line with the limit overall in total, but you can change the number of profiles you do in a single day, for example. Now, when you hit your 200 actions, HeyReach freezes your account so it doesn't risk anything going wrong, and it resets the following day. And finally, HeyReach uses static residential proxies which do not rotate your location. Now, what I mean by this is you get a single proxy, a single location where your account will be logged into. And if you're wondering how you can check this, what you can do is head over to settings on LinkedIn, go on to sign in and security. And when you click through to that, you click on where you are signed in, and it will show you all the locations where you're signed in and the IP addresses. Now, I wouldn't worry too much if you have more than one, because you're typically logged in on your phone, on your laptop, and therefore you're going to have multiple locations on there, which is completely okay. Now, what HeyReach does is it gives you a dedicated residential IP, which is only for your account and never shared with another account, which means your account is really safe because it has that one singular location, which doesn't indicate to LinkedIn that you're doing anything dodgy. And this is what precisely LinkedIn is looking for. It's looking for static stability of your location, because that's what you would do in real life. And finally, you may be thinking, damn, how do I get over that 200 connection requests per week limit? And unfortunately, there's no way to get over it on your own account, but HeyReach has a really clever tactic that lets you get over it in general. Now, what HeyReach does is it uses account rotation. So imagine that your one account can only send 200 connection requests per week. What if you had 5 accounts? If you had 5 accounts, you could send 1,000 connection requests per week. Now, here's the next challenge. How do you get those 1,000 to send with the correct lead lists and the campaigns? And this is where HeyReach comes in. It allows you to connect multiple accounts to the platform, and then HeyReach completely by itself will rotate those accounts when they hit their individual daily limits. And what that means is you can have a singular lead list, 5, 10, 15, 20 accounts, all rotating and attacking the same lead list, so that every single lead gets a singular message from a profile in your account bank. Now, if you're wondering where do you get accounts from, the easiest way to do that is to ask friends and family to borrow their accounts if they're not using LinkedIn, or to ask members of your team. And for most people, it's very easy to get to 1 to 3 to 4 accounts at least. And that way you 3 to 4x your volume. Now, this feature, most LinkedIn tools don't have. In fact, HeyReach was one of the first ever tools to come out with this feature, meaning that it's probably one of the best tools right now to do that exact function. So I'm going to show you how to set that up. All you got to do is you got to go to your LinkedIn accounts, you got to click connect account and just connect more accounts on LinkedIn. Every account you connect is another one for you. And so you can see, for example, in this account, we have 6 different profiles who we can rotate in a singular campaign. Now, the way you do that is you head over to campaigns and you say you click start new campaign. We'll give it a name. We'll call it rotation test 1. And it's really simple. When you go out to create your select, we're going to select a lead list. It doesn't matter really which one we select. We click continue and we can literally choose between all the accounts. So we literally just click them. So I can click 6 accounts and 6 of those accounts can send 40 connection requests a day. So that's 40 times 6. We're looking at 240 connection requests per day that we can send. 200 times 6 is 1,200 connection requests per week. We've 6x our outbound volume, our replies, our meetings booked, in literally a matter of clicks. Now, if you want to create that campaign, all you got to do is click continue and go through the standard process, and you'll be able to launch the campaign as it rotates through 6 different accounts. Now, if you want to slightly adjust a single account in that account rotation for whatever reason, because it's a bit colder, you can let HeyReach do it for you and it will manage that completely done for you. Or you can click on this button called configure limits. You can pick any profile, click configure limits, and it will come up with all the daily actions. Now, as I mentioned, many tools don't let you control this number, and we need to keep the total number in the right volume. But what we can do is we can simply change these numbers about to make sure they hit. So for example, if we had a cold account, I probably wouldn't go above 20 connection requests per day. But as it warms up, and an account like mine, I'm pretty much doing 35 to 40 connection requests per day consistently on LinkedIn, because I'm trying to max out my total volume. And you can do this on scale for all of your accounts. You can also change the number of follows you have per day, messages, in-mail messages, profile views, and post likes. Now, all these things you can add to your campaign sequence on LinkedIn, and you can change the actions you're doing and the interactions you're doing on LinkedIn. Now, logically, the next thing I need to show you after you've been able to send messages at volume and automated through HeyReach is how to follow up properly. And really, that's for one main reason: the money is in the follow-up. I can't begin to express the number of deals I've personally closed from either following up on LinkedIn, following up on email, following up via calls. There is so much value in chasing a prospect, at least when they're near the finish line or even at the beginning, to ensure you can either book in that meeting or close that deal. And that's pretty reasonable because buyers have a lot of things that they're doing whilst they're evaluating your service. For example, they are talking to other vendors, they're preparing other solutions against yours, they could even just be running their business, which means that very, very busy. If you send them a message at the wrong time, they may not just get back to you simply because they're busy and just didn't see that message. But it's important to get this right because it can go bad. For example, following up too soon or too aggressively can turn prospects off and cause them to report you as spam. Sending one-off messages without real much context can also cause confusion on the prospect side and cause you to get ignored. And finally, if you're doing this manually, it's both inconsistent and really easy to forget. So we want to be careful about manual follow-ups in general. Therefore, it follows the key to doing good LinkedIn follow-ups is to 1, be consistent, 2, be valuable to the reader and the recipient, and 3, use LinkedIn content to nurture passively so that you don't have to rely on DMs doing all the heavy work. So personally, this is the reason why I love LinkedIn so much. It's one of the only platforms that allows you to target really specifically who you want to speak to in the DMs, and also write posts that get impressions and have those posts almost act like air cover for your direct DM outreach. So I'm going to show you 2 ways to do follow-ups right now, and they're going to be really powerful for your LinkedIn campaigns. Now, the very first way you're going to do it is in your campaign levels. If we're going to head over to campaign again, and we're going to open a current sequence that we have. So we're going to head over to campaigns again and start a quick follow-up test sequence, and we'll call that follow-up test sequence here. Again, we're going to chuck in a random list of leads. It doesn't matter that much right now. We're going to put a couple of accounts on that, and then we're going to click on sequence. And this is what we're going to do to make a really powerful campaign. Firstly, we're going to ask if they're connected, and if they're not connected, we're going to send them a connection request. I typically like to go blank with my connection requests. Now, after you've gone blank with your connection request, you're going to wait a day and you're going to send out that very first message to get a response. You can send this message to be whatever you want it to be in order to start that conversation. Here's a quick script I wrote out for a SEO agency that targets B2B SaaS. I said, hey, saw your traffic dropped in Q4 and is yet to recover today. We just helped another B2B SaaS recover this month from traffic losses in November. Quite important you fix this before the losses keep getting bigger. Can I share a quick vid on the biggest fix you need to make right now? We're making an observation, it's a micro case study, and then there's a question. So let's imagine this is our first message. We can click save and we can send that message. And we can also just stop and then we can continue, or we can create follow-up sequences. And this is what I would suggest you do. Generally speaking, the very first follow-up I do is around after 2 days. So I'll do a 2-day follow-up and I'll probably click send a message, and it would say something along the lines of, is this a priority for you? and that's it. I ask a question that is not the same as the last question, but just alludes to it in a different way. And I suggest you do something similar, where you take your second message to essentially ask another question, but in a slightly different angle in order to get a response or trigger a response. So you can click save, and that can be your second message. Now, because LinkedIn is a platform with infinite message history, and what I mean by that is if you looked at any profile and you scrolled up your message, you could see the full chat history forever. We want to be careful about burning leads. And this is why I personally suggest leaving long gaps in between your messages, because it's very likely that your buyer that you're looking to outreach to, or your lead, is just not in buying cycle right now. And that's okay. So as a result, we want to give them time to either fall into buying cycle or become aware of their problem, and therefore aware that they can purchase your solution. So at this point, I would change the wait to around 4 days. I want to give them a bit more time, if not a little bit longer. I would add another action to send a message. And here I have two options. One, I would either just go write name, question mark. So I'd use the variable name. Now this works really well. It tends to get a very high response rate because it's quite direct and it's quite a big pattern interrupt. On the other hand, if you weren't comfortable with this message for whatever reason, you could add a message variation and you could come up with something slightly different. Now, a cool one to do is to add in a case study or add in a statement that builds authority. So you could be, for example, saying, here's the details on that B2B SaaS client. And I would just add little micro case study lines. I would say something along the lines of, November traffic, Feb traffic, didn't remove any content, or like didn't add any new content, finished the audit in 7 days, started seeing increases in 21 days. Pretty sure we can do something similar for you. Let me know. So again, you can make it a micro case study, or you can just say, hey, first name, question mark. Both work really, really well. It just depends if you want to go for a softer route or a bit more of a direct route. Now you can then click on save on that message. You might need to have a fallback if you're using variables, and you can click save. Now you send 1 message, 2 messages, and 3 messages. I highly suggest on the 4th message you wait a long time. I typically like waiting 30 days. And the reason why I like waiting so long is because they're clearly not receptive right now. 3 messages are quite a lot, or 2 messages are quite a lot in a single week when it comes to LinkedIn. So it's nice to wait a bit more time. And at this point, I would send a message as being, hey, just pinging this back up in case it's now important. In case it's now a priority. So I would do that at that point in time. And again, I'm not trying to get the deal closed. Now, any sort of replies after you do 30 days, I typically just assume that that prospect's completely cold now, and I would restart that prospecting cycle, probably manually or probably over a different channel, because at this point, I would consider the lead pretty dead or pretty cold for the next 90 days at least. And I know you may be surprised about this message at day 30, but it works really well because, again, a lot of the time, it's not the fact that you're not providing value or your offer isn't good. It's just a problem of timing. It's probably the biggest reason why big B2B deals close. It's just a function of timing. So we need to just mirror that and allow them to go through the journey in their own time, or the buyer to go through their journey, and just hit them back in 30 days, in 60 days, in 90 days, when potentially the time is better, the time is right, or this now has become a priority because other tasks that the client or the lead was doing have just dropped in priority too. Now that's the automated way to do follow-ups, but you can also do it manually as well. And the way I suggest you think about this is by going into the Heyreach Unibox. So the Unibox is awesome. It essentially allows you to look up all your inboxes in one place, even if you're using multiple LinkedIn accounts. So say, for example, you've got your friends and family, or you've got your co-workers on Heyreach as multiple accounts. Because you're using account rotation, you may have been wondering, do I have to log in to all these accounts in order to respond to their messages? And luckily, you don't have to do that. What you can do instead is just use Heyreach's Unibox. And it's really powerful because we can see all the conversations in a single place. The way I recommend you use it is by leveraging tags. So if you click onto any chat over here and you click the small icon, you can add a tag. Now we have lots of tags in this Heyreach account, but you can do anything from interested to demo to not relevant to generic response, or whatever that is. And as a result, you can tag conversations such that you know where that lead is in the journey and that you remember it. This is probably the biggest issue when it comes to follow-up, because if you're not doing it automated, it's just very easy to forget about the lead. And LinkedIn's inbox is quite poor when it comes to lead management. It doesn't have a tag feature. All it has is a star feature, which effectively only allows you to star or not star. HeyReach allows you to apply as many tags as you want across your inbox. So what we can do is we can tag a chat when we're going through it, and then we can also go the next step further, and we can click on this message called canned messages. Now, say for example, you see your conversations going in a traditional flow where they outreach, you have a bit of a back and forth, and then maybe you need to send a call booking link. You can save this as a canned message, and you can save a canned message that, for example, looks like this. Hey, yes, if you want to learn more about it, check out this video, and there's a Loom, and this is our website. Now, this is an awesome canned message because you don't have to waste any time rewriting this message or finding that Loom link. You can literally save down that message and just click a couple buttons and have that sent to the prospect automatically. You can make up canned messages really easy. You just click the word add and you can be like, awesome, what sparked your interest? I don't know. You can honestly say anything you want in this canned message, and you can say create a new canned message once you give it a name, and there you go. And you can toggle this to flow into your HeyReach account. So this is the second way to do follow-up on LinkedIn once you've already had a conversation started with the initial automated follow-ups. It's very likely, for example, that a prospect would reply to your first message, reply to the automation sequence stops, and now you need to handle this lead manually, and maybe they need a follow-up then as well. At which point we can use similar scripts. Like we can also say name, or like, O'Brien over here, question mark, and use that to restart that conversation and move it forward. And finally, I want to show you how you can take everything that you've learned in this masterclass, make LinkedIn a predictable revenue generation machine. And we're going to do that through scaling and optimizing. Now, this is a really important step. Up to now, we've worked on how we do things and we've got the machine moving in the right direction. Once you have the inputs right, it's about altering the inputs and making sure that we're doing the right thing in order to get the end outcome or the desired result. Say, for example, when we turn everything on, we start booking in 5 meetings a month. And that's great, but how do we make that 20 meetings a month, 40 meetings a month, 100 meetings a month? It's all very, very possible, and it all happens in this last step. And even if you're not booking in meetings straight away as a result of everything, you've got the skill correct. It's now just about iterating. Because what I see is that most people just give up way too early before they've even seen the full magnitude of the results they could achieve. And this is a function of a few things, including only testing a single message template, only testing a single batch of leads, or finding the right message template, but never changing it and never testing it, and eventually it fatiguing and dying out. So now I'm going to show you how we can avoid all those problems in order to scale this account in the right way. So the very first thing you need to get good at right now is reading the data. And HeyReach makes this really easy. So when you log into HeyReach, you'll have a dashboard where you can see all these metrics. And the very first step here is making sure we can analyze the right data. HeyReach is awesome because if you go to their dashboard, you can see all the numbers of how your campaigns are performing on a very high level very quickly. So this is the dashboard over here. We have a few curves. What you can do here on the left hand side is see the total number of connections you've sent in this date range. And that's really useful because we can know if for whatever reason we're underperforming. For example, we can see we're hitting 55 connections, something dropped off on the 15th and the 16th, and then since then we've only been sending 35, and then it dropped off again to 33 today. Now the drop off today is completely fine. That's just a function of us not finishing the day yet. Something's happened where we're not having the complete total lead volume. This probably tells me we've run out of leads. So that's the very first thing I'm thinking about when I look at this dashboard. What I'm also looking at is the number of connections accepted. And right now here we have 80. Now as a rule of thumb, I like to see around a 30% acceptance rate on average across all industries. Now for some industries, this number is going to be slightly lower. So for example, in the e-com space, you're generally going to struggle to get around 20% connection rate. It's probably going to be a bit lower, but maybe in the SaaS, or if you're targeting agencies, you're going to get upwards of 35, 40, 45%. So just be careful that we want to make sure this number is about in line with industry average. You're also going to see how many messages were sent, how many replies you got, how many in-mails you sent, and how many in-mail replies you got here as well. And you can see this as default for the last week. And then we can also set this date frame to, let's go from October 1st till today. So let's go right to the end, and you can see the full graph over here, and we can see how many emails we've sent, the connections, and so forth. Now this is our test account. That's why it doesn't look very solid line at the top, but our client accounts look very simple because it just has a solid line of all the connection requests going out, and then occasionally we ramp up the connection volume when we realize that we are actually a bit more warmed up. So again, we can see the connections sent, 3,948, 1,815 accepted, and so forth. And this is like a really healthy account here. What you can also do is segment between your campaigns over here. So we can scroll up and down and show look at all our campaigns, and we can segment by senders too. So we can look, for example, at Ilya's account, and we can see, for example, that his has only been really active around a week ago. So that's pretty much it. This is the aggregate view. If you scroll down, you can look at by a sender review and a campaign view. Why is this powerful? Why is this useful? Firstly, you're going to notice that some accounts underperform compared to others if you have account rotation set up. And this might be a function of the leads they're hitting, but also their positioning and how attractive they look to get an accepted connection. So you can use account acceptance rates as a proxy for how well your profile is speaking to the desire of your ICP when you send them a connection request. So this is a really important and interesting data point we can leverage and we can use and learn from to improve our connection rates. So for example, we have an account that's performing above average. We might want to change the headlines of our other accounts to match the higher performing one. We can also look at the data on campaigns, and so we can see which campaigns are working really well and which campaigns are not working as well as others. And on this level, we can see campaign stats, and we can see which campaigns are performing, which are running, and so forth. And this is a really good way to get a very high level overview of how we're performing on LinkedIn with our HeyReach account. Now, the next thing I want to bring out is message testing. It's really, really important to test your messages and continue to test them across different sets. The reason why I say this is because I've helped many clients, and sometimes our first or second or third campaigns haven't really hit because the messaging hasn't worked. And it's typically because we haven't spoken to the right pain points, or we haven't given a juicy enough offer. So I highly suggest when you're running your campaigns, you have at least 2 or 3 different message templates running so that you can continually see which ones are getting better responses from your target customer. Now, if you imagine you have, for example, 1,000 connections sent, you're probably going to have around 300 accepted. If we send 150 to one batch and 150 to another batch of messages, that's a good number to know that if we are in range or we're like getting the right type of responses. And if I send 100 messages and I get some data back on, let's say, a reply rate or a positive reply rate, that's a good amount of volume to have on LinkedIn to then make a decision if this message is working or not. Now, what I suggest you do, the biggest levers you should move is testing your offers. The simplest offers you can test is, hey, can I send you a video explaining what I'm talking about? Can I send you a flowchart or what we're going on? Can I send you a lead magnet? Or hey, do you want to have a call? Changing what you offer to send them is probably one of the biggest levers you can make in making sure that you're getting the most amount of reply rate out of the message you're sending. So make sure that you're testing your message offer. The next thing you want to test after your message offer is the pain point or the outcome that you're selling. So for example, if you're a lead generation agency, you might be obviously testing, hey, I can book you more meetings, but you might find that message is quite saturated and quite fatigued in the market. And so you may want to test things like, hey, I'll map out your full total addressable market. Hey, I'll build up the whole email infrastructure for you. Hey, we'll write all your email copy for you. See, the same end outcome, which is book more calls, but I've broken it into 3 separate services and 3 separate pain points, which you can send messages for. So even if you have a singular service, which seems relatively one-dimensional, there are lots of ways to cut and chop your messaging. Now, after you've tested your messaging in the sense of your offer and your pain point, you can do another step and you can test your lead list. So in this video, I showed you how to get leads from LinkedIn Sales Navigator, but that's not the only place to get leads. You can scrape them from tools like Apollo, Zoom Info, you can scrape them from Crunchbase, you can scrape them from direct directories and listings, from Google Maps, and you can take all this data and ingest it and push it into something like Play to apply AI enrichments. Now, by testing different sources of leads, we might find pockets of leads that are more qualified than others. And the reason why I mention this is because a lot of people go to LinkedIn Sales Navigator to get their first batch of leads, and therefore it's probably the most saturated lead list that we have access to. Second, probably to Apollo. So what you should be considering is, hey, maybe my message is working, working, but my lead list quality is not so great, or these guys have been hit up quite a lot, or maybe I need to find a smaller segment of my lead list that has a more specific pain point or is a smaller, more niche ICP. So we can test our messaging, but we can also test the source of our lead list. Now you need to be doing all these things at the same time if you want to be going from 5, 10 meetings a month up to 50, 100, 200, because the difference is in finding the arbitrages and finding what resonates in market. And when you find what resonates in market, you really want to scale up. And scaling up in this specific sense means adding lots more accounts on and increasing the volume. It means creating LinkedIn content to act as air cover for your content so that when you send DMs and then when you send messages, you're more likely to get a response. And a final note, when you're optimizing your campaigns, there are certain KPIs you can optimize for. You could optimize for a high acceptance rate, you can optimize for a message reply rate, you can optimize for a positive reply rate, you can optimize for a booked call, or you can optimize for how many pitches closed and how much revenue you closed. Obviously, we want to optimize for revenue, but typically a sales cycle might be a little bit longer than you expect. It might be 1 month, 2 months, 3 months. So if we're optimizing for this lagging metric, this metric that happens in a long time in the future, we're not going to have enough feedback signals to adapt our campaigns in the present. So personally, what I recommend is you optimize for booked calls. That's the main KPI you're optimizing for. I don't mind if my campaign gets less replies, if it's actually getting me more booked calls. In fact, I kind of want less replies because it's less work to manage. It's the same way I approach LinkedIn content. I don't optimize for impressions, likes, or comments. I optimize for how many calls am I generating, how much influence am I making in the market. And again, all you got to do is go back to your dashboard, open the campaign stats up, and you can measure which campaigns are working and which aren't really, really easily to make sure you're able to scale and optimize your account. And that's it. That's my entire masterclass on LinkedIn outreach that has generated me literally millions from this singular tactic. But in this masterclass, I didn't cover everything. I didn't cover how you do content, the strategy, your profile headline, your positioning, all the other pieces that make LinkedIn work for you. So click here to check out this next video where I'll show you the best LinkedIn lead generation strategy that gets you ridiculously high acceptance rates, ridiculously high reply rates, and helps you book in more qualified meetings really quickly. I'll see you there.